It was a warm summer evening when the carnival came to town. Lights flashed in the sky, rides spun in every direction, and the smell of popcorn and cotton candy filled the air. The laughter of children mixed with the music and the shouting of game vendors. Tom Reynolds held his daughter Lily's hand tightly as they walked through the busy crowd. Lily was only 5 years old, with curly brown hair and big blue eyes that always looked around with wonder. She wore her favorite pink dress with a unicorn on the front, and she skipped happily beside her dad, pointing out every ride she wanted to try. Tom smiled, happy to see her so full of joy. It had been a hard year since Lily's mother had passed away, and this night at the carnival felt like a small escape from their sadness. They played games together, won a big stuffed bear, and ate too much ice cream. After a few hours, they came across a magician setting up a small show. Lily tugged on Tom's arm and begged to stay and watch. The crowd gathered, and for just a few moments, Tom looked down to check his phone. When he looked up again, Lily was gone. At first, he thought she had just stepped to the side to see better, but when he called her name and looked around, there was no answer. His heart started to pound. He pushed through the crowd, calling louder, asking people if they had seen a little girl in a pink dress. Panic set in fast. Security was called, and the police were contacted. They shut down the entrances and searched the carnival grounds, but there was no sign of Lily. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Tom was devastated. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The case made the news. Posters were hung in every town nearby, and volunteers searched day and night. But there were no leads, no clues, nothing. The police believed she had been taken, but they didn't know how or by who. Tom blamed himself every single day. He replayed that moment over and over in his head. Why did he look away? Even for a second? He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and slowly his life began to fall apart. He quit his job, stopped seeing friends, and focused only on trying to find his daughter. For 14 years, he held on to hope, but each year that passed made it harder to believe she was still alive. He kept her room just the way it was, filled with her toys and drawings, as if she might walk back through the door any moment. He told himself he would never stop looking, even if the world forgot about her. He would never stop being her father. 14 years later, Tom was a different man. His hair had turned gray, and deep lines marked his face. He worked part-time at a hardware store in a nearby town, just to keep busy and make enough money to get by. He had no one left, no family, no close friends, only old memories and a heart that still ached for Lily. Every now and then, he still received calls from people who claimed to have seen a girl who looked like her. He would drive for hours, chasing every lead, only to end up disappointed again and again. Most people thought he should move on, except that Lily was gone, but he couldn't. He still kept her photo in his wallet, worn from the years of touching and looking at it. One rainy afternoon, Tom stopped at a gas station on his way home from work. The sky was dark and heavy with clouds, and the soft sound of rain tapped on the roof. He walked inside to grab a coffee and warm up a bit. The small shop was quiet, with the only sound being the hum of a refrigerator and soft music playing from a dusty old radio. As he stood in line to pay, something on the bulletin board near the entrance caught his eye. There were the usual flyers, lost dogs, babysitting offers, and car sale posters, but one image froze him in place. It was a poster for a local community theater show, something about a fairy tale performance happening at the town center that weekend. But what stopped Tom cold wasn't the play. It was the photo of one of the young actresses. The girl in the picture had long brown hair, big blue eyes, and a smile that hit Tom like a bolt of lightning. She looked exactly like Lily, older of course, but with the same eyes, the same shape of her face, even the same little dimple near her cheek. Tom couldn't move. His heart pounded so hard it made his chest hurt. He stared at the poster for a long time, not blinking, barely breathing. It was probably just a coincidence, just a girl who looked like his daughter. But something deep inside him, something quiet and certain, told him this wasn't just another lookalike. This was her. He took out his phone and snapped a picture of the poster, then ran out to his car. Hands shaking, he looked up the community theater online and found the show's schedule and the list of cast members. Her name was Emily Carter. It meant nothing to him, but that face, He couldn't forget that face. He found a social media page for the theater and saw more pictures of her in costume, laughing with other actors. The more he looked, the more sure he became. He couldn't explain it, but he just knew. Tom didn't sleep that night. He kept staring at the pictures, zooming in, comparing them to photos of Lily as a child. The eyes were the same. The smile was the same. He looked up the address of the theater and made a plan. The show was on Saturday at 6 p.m. He would go. He would see her in person. He didn't know what he would do or say, but he had to be sure. After 14 years of darkness, this tiny spark of hope had lit up a fire in his chest. And for the first time in a long time, Tom felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt alive. Saturday evening arrived with a soft breeze and golden light as the sun began to set. Tom parked his car a block away from a small community theater, his heart thumping like a drum. He had barely slept in the last 2 days, and his hands were shaking as he walked toward the entrance. Families and couples stood outside, chatting and waiting to go in. Laughter filled the air, but Tom felt like he was in a dream. Everything around him was a blur, except for the single hope that had been burning inside him. He might see Lily again. He bought a ticket and found a seat near the middle of the audience. The room was cozy, with red velvet seats and string lights across the stage. As people filled in, Tom kept glancing at the program booklet in his hands. Emily Carter was listed as playing the role of the princess. Her name stared back at him, over and over again, as if daring him to believe. When the lights dimmed and the show began, Tom sat frozen, barely able to breathe. The opening scene started with laughter and dancing, but when she stepped onto the stage, time seemed to stop. There she was, dressed in a long gown with her hair tied back. She looked like a young woman from a fairy tale. But to Tom, she was still his little girl. His eyes filled with tears as he watched her speak, move, and smile. Every gesture, every expression brought back memories of bedtime stories, of her tiny hand in his, of her giggles in the backyard. He couldn't believe how much she had grown, how beautiful she had become, and how much she still looked like the daughter he had lost. He watched the entire show without moving, afraid that if he blinked, she might disappear again. When the performance ended, the audience stood and clapped, and Tom stood too, though his hands shook and his chest felt tight. The actors came forward to take their bows, and when Emily stepped up, Tom whispered her name under his breath. The applause faded, the lights came on, and people began to leave. But Tom stayed in his seat, unsure of what to do next. He wanted to run backstage, to hug her and cry and tell her everything. But what if he was wrong? What if she didn't remember him? What if she wasn't Lily? He sat there for a long time until the theater was almost empty, then stood and walked toward the exit slowly. Just as he reached the door, he heard her voice, bright and cheerful, coming from behind the curtain. He turned, followed the sound, and saw the actors stepping out from backstage to greet the audience. And then she was right in front of him. Tom's heart stopped. She was laughing with another actor, holding a bouquet of flowers. He took a few steps forward, not knowing what to say. And then she looked at him. Their eyes met, and something flickered in her face, something unsure, like a memory buried deep. Tom's lips trembled. "Lily," he whispered. She tilted her head, her smile fading just slightly. "I'm sorry," she said kindly. He stared at her, eyes full of tears. "You're Lily Reynolds. You're my daughter." People around them stopped talking and looked. Emily's face changed, confused, a little scared. "No, my name is Emily Carter," she said softly. Tom's heart broke again, but he didn't stop. "Please, do you remember the pink dress with the unicorn? The bear we won at the carnival? Your mother's lullaby?" Her face went pale, and her eyes grew wide. She stepped back slowly, and Tom saw it. Something in her eyes, something awakening. She looked like she wanted to run, but also like she couldn't look away. The truth was coming up to the surface, and neither of them could stop it now. Emily stood frozen, staring at the man in front of her. Her heart was beating so fast that she felt dizzy. The theater around her seemed to disappear. The lights, the people, the noise, all faded into silence. She looked into his eyes, and something strange stirred deep inside her. There were flashes in her mind, like small pieces of a dream. A man lifting her into the air, her tiny fingers gripping his shirt, the sound of laughter, the smell of popcorn, the bright colors of a spinning ride, a soft voice singing her to sleep. She shook her head, confused and scared. I don't understand," she whispered. Tom stepped closer, slowly, like someone afraid to scare away a butterfly. "It's you," he said gently. "I know you don't remember, but you're my daughter. You disappeared when you were 5. We were at a carnival. Someone took you. I never stopped looking for you. 14 years. His voice cracked. Emily felt a tear roll down her cheek, but she didn't know why. She looked around, hoping someone would help her make sense of what was happening. Then a voice called from the back of the room, sharp, nervous. "Emily, let's go." A woman in her early 60s was standing there, holding a purse tightly. Her face was tight with fear. Emily turned, her voice trembling. "Mom." The woman's eyes flicked to Tom, and in that second, something changed in Emily's chest. The woman who had raised her never talked about the past. Emily had always thought it was because of pain or loss, but now doubt was rising. She had no baby pictures, no stories of when she was small, only from age 6 and on. Anytime she asked about where she came from, her mother gave vague answers or changed the subject. Now, standing between two people, one who looked desperate and broken, and one who looked afraid, she had no idea who to believe. Tom took out an old, folded photograph from his wallet and held it out to her. Emily took it with shaking hands. It was a picture of a little girl in a pink dress holding a stuffed bear, sitting on the shoulders of a younger version of Tom. The girl had her smile, her eyes, her face. She gasped. "That's me," she said softly. The woman in the back of the room shouted again, this time louder. "Emily, come here. Right now." But her voice was shaking too. Tom turned toward her, his voice suddenly full of anger and grief. "What did you do? How did you get her?" The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't take her," she said. "My husband, he brought her home and told me her parents didn't want her. I was sick back then. I couldn't have children. I didn't ask questions. I was afraid." Emily stared at her, feeling like the ground was falling away beneath her feet. She backed away from both of them, trying to breathe. The theater manager appeared then, along with a security guard. Someone had called the police. Soon, everything became a blur of flashing lights, questions, and voices. DNA tests were done in the days that followed. The results came back quickly. Emily Carter was Lily Reynolds, Tom's daughter. The truth was finally known. The woman who raised her was arrested, but with sympathy, because it was clear she wasn't the one who kidnapped Lily. Her husband had passed away years earlier, taking the full truth with him. Emily, Lily, had a choice to make now. She was 18, almost 19. She could live on her own, but she didn't know where she belonged. Slowly, carefully, she started to get to know Tom. They went for walks, talked about the past, and looked through old photo albums. It wasn't easy. 14 years couldn't be fixed in a day. But with time, they began to rebuild something. One day, Lily stood in her old room at Tom's house. It was dusty, but everything was still there. Her drawings, her toys, her little bed. She picked up the bear from the carnival, still sitting on the shelf, and hugged it tight. Then she looked at her father and said, "I think I remember now." Tom smiled, tears in his eyes, and opened his arms. She walked into them, and this time, he didn't let go.